back to Grassroots Media, and welcome back to this morning's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show, live here from Pizza Inn in Greeneville. It's been a few weeks since we've been on air here on a Saturday morning, but we're back again, and I've got a special guest with me this week. Mark couldn't be with me. As always, I'm your host, Tyler. This week I got special guest, South Green head coach Sean Jones. How you doing this morning?
Doing great this morning.
I've seen you devour the pizza already. Is it good this morning?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, anytime you get some pizza, and I ate this morning, so yeah, it's really good.
You're the one that enjoys it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Coach Hosey's the one that doesn't like it.
Yeah, he's real picky with his food, and, and I think some people come in and, don't want to. I mean, if it's going to be there and they need it, I'm going to eat it. So there you go. That's exactly right.
I think that's your incentive to come on Saturday.
That's exactly right.
You get free pizza, so you don't mind coming.
Oh, yeah.
through.
I mean, I was driving up somewhere. I was like, hey, we're going to have pizza. I mean, if not, we're going to have to go somewhere else. But no, I'm just joking. But no, yeah, it's great pizza. Yeah, I enjoy it.
As always, it's always good to come in here on a Saturday morning after a win also. Got a big win over Union County last night on homecoming night to make it even more special. 47-0. Defense was the big factor in this game. You limited them to only 34 yards on offense. Had a few defensive touchdowns also. Take me through that game and take me through your preparation and how you were able to execute.
Well, had a real, I guess mentally as a coach, real tough week because you come off the big win at Chucky Doak and had homecoming going on, and then it's sandwiched in between the next big rival game next week. So I mean, we done all right this week in practice preparing, but it was just kind of strange with everything going on. And defensively, we've been working hard on defense. Like first three games, the offense kind of carried us. But last night, the defense really stepped up. We had 34 total yards. It is just amazing no matter who you're playing, and we still had 300 yards on offense. You didn't feel that last night, and Wayne from the Greenville Sun asked me after the game last night. He's kind of looked a little frustrated at halftime. I was like, well, we were. We just felt like offensively we wasn't doing what we can do, but overall, I was still happy and real excited for the kids because, like I say, the defense stepped up, and hopefully now we can put it all together, get your defense going, get the offense going, and have some really productive games here going through the rest of the season.
How many total turnovers did you force?
Well, we had 8. We had 6 interceptions and 2 fumbles. So we had 8 total, and that's unheard of in a high school. Also in one game, and it's kind of crazy. Coach Case had mentioned to the boys before the game. I think we were pretty sure we were like plus 12 on the year going into the game. So you get 8 more, it's plus 20, and then we had the interception. So plus 19 is still awesome, in high school to have, and just 4 games,
Correct.
So that's the turnover margin in the first 4 games. So we got to continue to do that, and if we do that and give the offensive opportunity to score, again, first game at Crockett we got 5 turnovers, only scored on 1, so we got better last night. I think we pretty much scored I think we scored on 6 of them. After the turnovers, so that's a whole lot more productive there. So we got to keep forcing turnovers, and when we get the ball on offense, we got to go score.
You didn't turn the ball over any on offense, did you?
We had 1 interception, so we've only had 2 turnovers the whole year. Sue Song the first game, and it was just thrown up at halftime, so I really don't count that one. And last night he underthrew a ball. TJ had come out. We put a new receiver in, but it still was there. He underthrew the ball a little bit, so. We'll get that fixed. The other things, last Saturday against Chucky Doak, we felt like he missed some throws, but last night he was a whole lot better with his reads and everything. So he's playing well. He's got to be the field general out there, and sometimes when somebody like him makes a mistake, we got to keep remembering he just turned 16. He's a junior, probably should still be a sophomore, and he's doing really well with the team right now and leading us. So. He's going to continue to get better, and if we continue to get better, we'll be fine.
You look at his stat line, too. He had a productive game, 11 for 15, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. I'm sure Coach Case is going to blame that interception on me also. I don't know if you saw that part during our interview this week, but I asked about his leadership and his maturity and how he had only had 1 turnover, and they kind of told me not to put any bad juju on him. So that might be my fault. Also, another reason why you're here on Saturday morning, they might have taken your job last week. They did a really good job.
Well,
did you watch?
I haven't got to watch it yet, but they were talking about it yesterday. Him and Coach Dye, and that's one thing about me. I don't have to have a spotlight, and I think some coaches do. It's just about them and everything, and I really enjoy getting all my coaches involved and doing stuff like that. Like I say, trying to get Coach Burns. Don't know if that ever happened, but we're going to try to get him in. But they really enjoyed that, and all that. And Coach Dye, he said, I was a little nervous. I said, well, ain't no need to be nervous. I said, you just got a bunch of people. So But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I'm going to go home and watch this afternoon. But they were both telling me about it, and people were commenting yesterday at school.
I mean, I enjoyed doing it with Coach Case because I've known Coach Case for a long time too, and a lot of people I don't think see that humor out of him either.
Well, that's
so it's good to see it come out.
Well, it's just like yesterday. He's right. When he said, the two groups of people that hate homecoming the most is your coach's administration, and last night after the game he told the boys that, but yesterday we had the cheerleaders had a little activity where they got a teacher out there that made up a little dance. They had like a little dance off. Well, if you don't know, Coach Case won it. Him and his partner won it. So he got out there and had a little fun. But that's another thing. You kind of chalk it up last night. Homecoming is always tough. You want the kids to enjoy it, and we do, and it happens all over the country, and they enjoy homecoming week. But the biggest thing is you got that game on Friday night. We go out and the guys escort the girls, and you don't get to have your normal pregame talk with them and all that stuff, and you wonder are their minds right, and that's why you kind of try to schedule someone that you can beat. I've been beaten on homecoming before, and that ain't fun. But at least it's the guy from Union County last night tells us after the game, at least you don't have Alcoa for your homecoming like they do next week. So it's like, well, that might be not so good scheduling. So if you got Alcoa for your homecoming, that might not be the best decision you can ever make.
Credit to you for doing your homecoming before the game also. The game that I covered in Hancock County last night, they did their homecoming at halftime. Longest halftime I've ever been a part of. Well, I'm not kidding. It was no less than 30 minutes.
That's why we do it that way. Get it over with and get it done. And because if you do it at halftime, you can't talk to you guys. And like I say, what if you're you're in a battle and you need to talk to the guys? So we've always done it that way. Get it over with, so the guys can get some kind of concentration on the game after all that's over.
I wanted to ask what player you would want to talk about the most and who you thought shined the brightest last night, but I feel like I already know your answer to. Dion Blair had an incredible night all around, offense and defense.
Yeah, Dion's just that quiet kid. He's since he's a freshman, we played him, and he just comes to work every day and does what he's supposed to do, and he's becoming a leader here. Right here at the start of the season. And like I say, defensively, we've played him for 3 years there, and he's played really well, and he's a field general on defense. He's a corner. We can try to get our calls in. The linebackers make the call, and sometimes he makes the checks because he knows what's going on. And that's hard for the guys to hear him out there. He's at a corner, but he'll get frustrated at practice. Like, guys, I know what's going on, and makes the checks. And then offensively, he's a playmaker. Got to get the ball in his hands, and that's what we try to do. Last week we put a couple things in for him at Chucky Doak, and then last night, we tried to get him out there on the edge, get the ball to him on some bubbles and tunnels and stuff, and see what happens. But he played really well last night. Like I say, they asked me after the game, some of the other media, like, who would you want to call out? I said, well, it's got to be Dion. Like I say, for what he done last night. And everybody, we had other people play well. The big interception by Heath Norton. That's a lineman's dream to get something like that. The ball fell right in his hands, and so some of those guys play well, and really looking at it, Nash ran hard. Still another night he had 96 yards, and he played well, and like I say, defensively, it's just everybody. There's just really too many people to mention because again, when you host somebody to 36 yards, that's a total team effort when you do that.
8 turnovers. I'd try to list them all right here to give everybody credit. I know Dion had the 26-yard pick six. Then you had 5 total turnovers in the second quarter. Heath Norton's interception. Another interception from Blair. He also had a touchdown to put you up 14-0. He was a spark plug for you. Connor Race had an interception. Keyshawn Ingram had a fumble recovery for a touchdown. Trey Gentry had a fumble recovery. And then TJ had another interception.
Yeah.
All right. Is there another one too? I think I had 7 right there. If we can't think of it, that's okay because with 8 interceptions, that's incredible, and that's hard to remember all.
Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember who had the other interception because we had 6 interceptions and two fumble recoveries. So, but I can't recall who that last one is, and I apologize to whoever it was who had the last one. Connor Race. Okay, so Connor. So we got Connor there. So and then the young guys come in and played well. Had the freshman there score his first big time touchdown.
Obi.
Yeah, Sean Obi scored there, and I think I read this morning he had 61 yards rushing in just a little bit of time. We put him in there about halfway through the fourth quarter, and I told the coaching staff, Union County was playing tough, and our varsity guys, the last drive they were on, we punted. And I told him, I was like, well, do we want, we're going to put that second bunch in there. I said, if they leave their first bunch in, we may go backwards, but we didn't. We went down and scored. So that was really good to see those young guys get out there and get some playing time. that's the kind of games you want to get everybody in. And I felt like we was able to get everybody in for at least a play last night. And that's what you're trying to do.
Putting the lid on this game too, Nash Rader, we talked about, had that rushing touchdown. He had a great night with 15 carries, 96 yards, and a touchdown. TJ had a receiving touchdown also. Looking forward now, you've got West Green coming up. The game means a lot more now. They're back in conference with you. It's the oldest rivalry in Greene County. The milk can resides on the other side of the river right now in Mossheim. So, what's your outlook going into this game this year, and how pumped up are you for it?
Well, we just got to be prepared. We felt like last year we let that slip away, and that kind of started that mid-year slide last year. When you lose those rival games, and it's big for kids. And as a coach, I over the years I've tried not to put so much into those games that's not conference games, but. Last year West Green beat us, and then Chucky Doak beat us, and then we got hammered by Hampton. And come to find out, the talk after the Hampton was the seniors were very, very upset that they got beat by West Green and Chucky Doak, and really was, didn't pay much attention to the Hampton game. And so, I kind of had to, evaluate that and say, wait a minute here. These games are big, so we'll go into it, a big rival game this week. I know West Green struggled here a little bit, but it doesn't matter. No matter what the records are. When you get these rivals games, it's just like Chucky Doak last week. It don't matter what's going on. When people are playing South Green, we always see their best. You watch the little film, it's like, well, maybe they're not playing well or they're not doing this well, but we always get the best from in these county rivals, so it's going to be big next week.
One thing I talked about with Chucky Doak a lot recently was their regular season win streak that they had going on for the longest time. I think we could start to talk about you all now in that sense with a regular season win streak dating back to last year. Do you know how many it's up to at this point?
Well, we got 4 this year, and I think we ended the last year with 4 straight. Four straight, if I'm not mistaken. It was after Hampton. I think we had 4 more. So if it's 4 or 3, we're either 7 or 8 regular season, depending if it was 3 or 4 at the end of last year. So we just got to keep this train going. It's what we're trying to do, and we don't want to look ahead. We talk about Hampton and different things, and we tried to talk with the way they reshuffled the classifications. Meigs moved up, and we talked about it last night. Meigs moved up. There for a while, when the classification came out, York had moved to Region 3, and that was the big team last year, made a semifinal run. And you're thinking, hey, if they stay at Region 3, you wouldn't see them in semis. Now they petitioned, got back down to Region 2, and that's fine. That's going to be the big team. There's a few other teams down there, and of course Hampton in our own conference. We still got Eagleton to go and Happy Valley. So we're just trying to take it game a game. Instead of looking ahead, and it's tough, when you got teenagers trying to take a game again. And I don't think we have to do that this week though, with West Green coming up. Not looking ahead at all, because they talked about last night. They're ready for it, kind of get their revenge from last year.
Are we going to have a panel of all 3 coaches this week?
Well, if that train's going pretty good, we might try to do that. Get all of us in there. And again, it's going to be tough to get Coach Burns, but we might get all the other 2 in there again this week.
Coach Burns is one I don't expect till later on. I think he's going to have to see how fun it is with all 3 of you on there before he can join. But I think you can convince him at some point.
I think I can. We'll see what happens.
At some point, you're going to have a clever name before we join you.
Yeah,
because they had the DC edition. I don't know what your all's going to be.
I don't know. That'll be tough. I think they got that from Tarleton and Buchanan. And. That's what Coach Case talked about, trying to beat them out, and there were those shows. So Tarleton, Buchanan, it looks like these South Green guys are trying to come after you.
Hey, we got competition. It's fun to do that once a week too, to have a fun show like that.
Oh yeah.
Because usually they're not really uptight interviews, but they're more serious in a sense. But it's fun to do the joking interviews every now and then because it's really lighthearted and it's fun to watch too. And I'm sure everybody else enjoys the humor aspect of it also.
And it's just kind of funny way James starts out. He's got his humor, then he'll get serious. So James does a good job at it, and then Tarleton follows him around with right there. And they've known each other for a long time, so they do really good together right there.
Coach Case had a good intro with the Ric Flair.
Oh yeah, that was their idea to do the Ric Flair. So
I got the woos in there also. I might join the woos this week. You'll join the woos this week.
Oh yeah, we'll do it all. Yeah.
All right, Coach. I think that's all I've got for you this week. Thank you for coming through. If you want any more breakfast pizza, please take it with you.
No, that's good.
Just leave me one piece for a prop.
Well, if you need breakfast pizza, everybody out there, Pizza Inn's got the pizza here, so come here and get you some.
Thank you to Kyle for letting us sit in once again. I always like to shout him out each week. You can put anything on the breakfast pizza you want. We just got a regular one this morning. Usually when Mark's here, we drag it through the garden, but Mark won't be here for a few weeks. But that's all we've got for the recap for South Green. We'll go ahead and jump into a break, and when we come back, we'll recap the other wins throughout the county on Grassroots Media.
Pizza Inn offers contactless buffet to go with JoJo's Family Feast or anything on our menu for carryout. We also honor birthday parties and cater to businesses and large events. We make it easy. Call us today. Pizza Inn Greeneville.
At Corner Pond, the friendly and knowledgeable staff has the experience necessary to help you out regardless the need. Have an item of value you'd like to pawn or sell? Corner Pond can help. They pawn numerous items of value, including firearms, tools, ammunition, silver, coins, and much more. When you walk through their doors, you'll find well-stocked shelves full of electronics, gaming systems, fishing and hunting equipment, car audio and accessories. And don't forget about the room full of guitars and basses and amplifiers, or their outside lawn and garden equipment. Corner Pond is a case knife dealer and carries numerous used knives as well. Stop by and let the friendly staff at Corner Pond help you today at 432 East Bernard Avenue, Greeneville, Tennessee. Tommy's Plumbing has provided professional plumbing services to the residents of Greeneville, Tennessee for over 30 years. Our experience and reputation have helped us grow our business to add locations in Jonesboro, Tennessee. Tommy's Plumbing is local and family owned, and we offer a full line of plumbing services, such as kitchen faucet, shower faucets, commodes, and bathroom faucets, as well as drain cleaning. We also provide outside plumbing work, such as septic and sewer drain cleanouts, as well as repair and replace. Tommy's Plumbing pretty much does it all. Tommy's Plumbing is licensed, bonded, and insured. Our quality workmanship and passion to provide our clients with expert service is second to none. We guarantee we have the best warranty around. For all your plumbing needs, give Tommy's a call at 638-3662.
Hometown Realty of Greeneville is selling Greeneville and Greene County 1 yard at a time. Every coach knows making the right call is what makes his team successful. If you want success in moving your real estate, get the home field advantage. Make sure to make the right call. He offers you professional service with local hometown people you know and trust. Call Hometown Realty of Greeneville today, 423-639-2345.
Welcome back to Grassroots Media, and welcome back to this morning's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show, live here from Pizza Inn in Greeneville. I'm alone on set now. As I mentioned in the first half, don't have co-host Mark Brooks with me, but I'm actually not alone. We've got CEO, boss man, whatever you want to refer to him as, Dalton Lamb behind the camera. Dalton, how are we doing this morning?
I'm doing well. I'll be doing a lot better if we can get some more consistent internet connections so that we're not continuing to drop. So apologize for that. Hopefully it'll get worked out here in just a moment and we'll be good to go. But I'm excited to be here, Tyler.
We'll talk about some other wins throughout the county this week. I know you had the South Greene game last night. I had the North Greene game. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. North Greene picked up a 20-14 win over Hancock County last night. Important win for them to get another win to get their first win within the Region 1A conference. It was a must-win situation for them. If you lose that game, you start out 0-2 in the conference. You then have to essentially win out to make the playoffs. Good for them to get that win in Sneedville. They carried out business as they needed to do. Tightly contested game. I think I wrote that there were 3 lead changes and a tie and only 5 total touchdowns. So it was really back and forth the whole time. You've seen Coach Tilson's team fight back in a lot of situations like that. You kind of saw it Monday night with Cumberland Gap. It's gone. I mean, you don't know how different it could have been because one play changes the outcome of every game in some instances like that. So you take away those 2 plays, that could be 2-0 in conference right now. You take away some of those turnovers in the Gap game, they could have easily won that game the other night. North Greene could be sitting at 4-1 right now. So I think North Greene is one of those teams where their record does not indicate how good of a team they are potentially at full strength.
I agree. And you have that sometimes at all levels of football and sports, and I think it is a case. You think they lose on Monday night, 21-18. They lose to Jellicoe, what was it, 14-7?
Or 14-7.
14-7, they lose. A touchdown there, a field goal on Monday night. I think that it does them well to go to Hancock County last night and win that game the way they did, because twice already this season, in a young season, they've been on the losing end of those close one-score type of games. So it's really, I think it's nice to have, if you're Coach Tilson and company, to have that win in a close game. And you take this and you build off of it, because it's a big region win, because as we've talked about, it's not one of those situations this year where you just get in. you have to win a couple of games. So they've got a pretty solid schedule down the stretch here, and we'll see exactly what the Huskies have. But big win last night. I know that, again, you were there, so you can speak to a lot about that game.
And North Green still had, I think, 3 total turnovers that game, too. It was a game where they really had to claw from behind, and their defense stepped up when they needed to. There were 3 combined fumbles in the first quarter alone. North Green had 2, and then Hancock County had 1. Some of them were the same situations as they had been, just fumbles on a handoff. One was in an unfortunate situation where on a punt, one of North Green's blockers didn't know where the football was in the air, and it bounced off of his helmet and then went right to a Hancock County player. And on Hancock County's end, North Green just happened to strip the ball away on a breakaway run on the 3rd play from scrimmage. Nobody scored in the first quarter, but the second quarter, each team did pick up steam. You had Jake Duffy get into the end zone to make it 6-0 North Green. Hancock County turned right around. Quarterback Chandler Parsons scrambled into the end zone and scored the 2-point conversion to make it 8-6. And then following that, Grayson Collins broke free along the left sideline, had a 43-yard touchdown to make it 14-8. So 3 straight possessions you saw each team score after not having a single scoring play throughout the first quarter and a few minutes into the second quarter. Going into halftime, it was 14-8 North Green. And then Joshua Collins had a 6-yard touchdown out of the break to tie it 14-14. Actually, out of the break between the third and fourth quarter. Nobody scored the third quarter either. Going to the fourth quarter, Hancock County scores 14-14. Here's the point where North Green really found their identity too, because they were driving down the field. Colton Robbins wide open into the end zone. He catches it over his shoulder, but it bounces off of his hands behind his back, and the trailing defender for Hancock County catches it, falls down in the end zone. So when that happens, any athlete can attest. When you have a moment like that, it's pretty deflating.
Yeah.
But he stepped up, had a huge tackle for loss on defense, forced them to punt the ball away, and that's when they went on their drive into the end zone to win the game. Thomas Darnell really stepped up as a quarterback. I think this is his 4th game starting at quarterback now. And he had a 38-yard rush to the 5-yard line. And then Yeshua Vaughton, a few penalties, bumped him up to the 1-inch line. And then he was able to take it in from the 1-yard line. That ended up being the final, 20-14. But the biggest play of the game was Nicholas Mitchell. He had an interception to seal it with just under, I think, 4 minutes left in the game also. He's a player that I really hadn't been able to say his name much either. And it might be a test to how skilled he is on defense, holding opponents to 0 receptions and them not throwing to his side a lot, as Coach Tilson likes to say also. But
keeping it away.
Yes. And the one time that they did try him last night, he had an interception to seal the game. They had a 20-14 win in Sneedville. Coach Tilson was happy. I think if anybody is a North Green fan and understood what happened with Hancock County last year, it was a big win for him. He enjoyed going down there and taking a win on their home field, and I think it's good for them going forward too.
Yeah, again, I can't emphasize enough. If you've ever been a part of a team or any kind of sport, any environment where you put so much work in the off season, you go in the week of the game, you're preparing for the game, and then last week was such a strange week where they prepared all week. They're ready to go on Friday night. Weather will not allow them to play. They have to wait until Monday. It's a school night. Mm-hmm. They go out. That's a night where normally it's JV, if JV's playing or something like that. But they go out there. They play that game. They're down big. They're down 2 scores, but they're down 21-6, feeling like, the game may be over. It may be out of reach, but you claw back, you fight, you dig, you scratch, you do everything right, and then at the very end you make a mistake and it kind of ends the game for you. And you lose that game, and it makes you feel like, because the week before that was Jellicoe, mm-hmm. and it makes you feel like, man, back-to-back weeks. And then last night you go to Hancock County, your second game in 4 days, and you go down there and you're in a dogfight again, 14-14, and all of a sudden, you score, and you're like, hey, can we hold on? Can we hold on? Because in the past 2 weeks, it's not really happened for us. There's been something that's happened that's caused us to lose or been kind of that determining factor up with that interception. And, I feel like it's one of those deals where, man, it had to feel good if you're a North Green fan.
I agree also, and it was a good maturity game for them because Thomas Darnell, you've seen his struggles at quarterback this year where you saw the nerves kind of get to him a little bit. And a lot of those turnovers have kind of been self-inflicting also, where they've had trouble handing the ball off, or whether they pull the ball on an RPO and it ends up just falling onto the ground right there. But it was good to see that type of play that they've had those turnovers on become fruitful for them, because it was a jet sweep that he pulled. And of course, when you see, I think it was Jake Duffy running on that jet sweep. That's the fastest guy on North Green's team.
Right.
So when you see him going on a jet sweep, you're going to pounce on that, because you don't want him to catch the outside and break a seam and then go to the end zone.
Right.
And then Darnell kept it, found a hole right in the defense, busted through it, and went all the way down to the 5-yard line. And then, as I mentioned, a few penalties and a few Yeshua Vault runs in the inside led them to the 1-inch line, and they were able to bust it through. They win 20-14. Very, very long game. I can't stress how long that game was. As I mentioned in the first half with Coach Jones, they had homecoming also. Their homecoming was a halftime. That halftime took no less than 30 minutes. By the time they finally got to play in the third quarter, Chucky Doak had already finished at Pigeon Forge.
What time did that game start, Hancock County?
7:30.
Okay, so they started 30 minutes late.
They started 30 minutes later than Pigeon Forge and Chucky Doak. But still, they were finished in a 2-hour game before we started the third quarter in Sneeville. And we'll jump right into that also. Chucky Doak, great 7-0 victory over Pigeon Forge. Sometimes all you need is a touchdown. Sometimes all you need is one scoring play. And that was the case for the Black Knights. 7-0 win over Pigeon Forge. Huge for them to knock off one region win out of the way in their first regional game. I don't know what to really say about a game like that when it's 7-0. Of course, you're going to talk about defenses, and in defensive battles like that, it's kind of like we talked about with the North Green Jellicoe game a few minutes ago. It's really that one play that makes the biggest difference in the game, and that one play was an 86-yard screen pass to Isaiah Treadway, which I think you saw last night in the Unicoi County game.
I was not at Unicoi County. I was at Union County, South Green.
No, last year.
Oh, last year.
Yes.
We did see that same. We did see that same thing last year, and defensive battles are wild to me, because it always seems like you're never, when you have a defensive game like that, and Pigeon Forge 2 weeks in a row. How do they feel? It's 7-6 to Granger last week, 7-0 to Chucky Doak this week. But when you're in a defensive battle like that, what normally isn't happening is that teams are getting 3, 4, 5 yards a carry, getting first downs, marching down the field. What normally happens is there is one play or a couple plays where there's just busted coverage, and so you look down at the stat sheet and you look at the play sheet and the drive sheets, and it's like 1 yard, 2 yard, 3 yards, 2 yards, 1 yard, and punts and all this stuff, and then that sore thumb sticks out 86 yards, and that's what normally happens. And luckily for Chucky Doak, their defense wasn't the one that gave up the big play, at least the big play that led to a score. And those games are fast. I mean, not only do you start at 7 o'clock, but those games are fast because there's not a lot of back and forth. There's not scoring. There's not time between the scores and things. Pretty quick game. But if you're Chucky Doak and Coach Billy Kaler and company, I'm sure you'll take it.
I'm sure Coach Billy Kaler and company were also happy that game did end when it did, so they could get back in a reasonable time through Rod Run's traffic.
You don't think they went up there and celebrated with a trip through Rod Run's?
They might have. They might have, but I don't know how. I've never been to Rod Run's, so I don't know the type of traffic. I've just heard. I've never been to Pigeon Forge High School either, so I don't know if you have to go through that a lot, but I'm sure they were happy that they were able to leave a little sooner than 10 o'clock, because that would probably be a very long drive back home. That probably wouldn't get you back in bed before midnight.
Probably not, and that's probably how Hampton felt last night, having to go all the way to Cumberland Gap for that game. Luckily for them, they got a big win, so that made that trip a little bit more manageable. But, yeah, going to Pigeon Forge on Rod Run weekend is probably not ideal.
Not at all.
But
not at all. One of the big plays also that we failed to mention was the Chucky Doak defense stripped a fumble on the 14-yard line. If that doesn't happen, that's just as we mentioned a few minutes ago also, how different could the game have been? Pigeon Forge could have walked right into the end zone and scored. They strip the ball on the 14-yard line. Very next play, Isaiah Treadway goes 86 yards into the end zone. So if you take that one play away, Chucky Doak could have been on the losing side of things. Could have been a 7-0 ball game the other way with Pigeon Forge.
I think it's interesting too. Like, you think sometimes you can't quantify things like momentum. You feel like it's impossible to quantify that and make it into a stat that you can, value. But you see that, and it's a defensive game where really neither team had really been just breaking out the blocks and just picking up big yardage. But all of a sudden, you get a turnover on the 14-yard line, and very next play, you go 86 yards to the house. I think it just shows you that football is not only a game of inches, but it's a game of runs.
Yes.
I mean, you've got to ride the wave of momentum whenever you have it, regardless, whether it's on offense or it's on defense. You've got to be able to ride that wave. And luckily for Chucky Doak last night, they got a big turnover at a big time, and then they parlayed that right into a touchdown that, was the difference. And the Pigeon Forge team this year, I'd said a couple times that it had surprised me how they were struggling, it seemed, and struggling for their standards. They're a good team. I'm not saying that they're struggling. They played a great game last night. They played a great game last week. But struggling from a record standpoint comparative to the last couple of years, and I'd been surprised by that. But, it's one of those deals where if you're a Pigeon Forge fan right now, you're thinking, man, we've given up 14 points. We've given up 14 points in the last 2 weeks.
One team that I think could be dangerous if they figure everything out, because you look at the stat sheet, Pigeon Forge 146 yards on offense, Chucky Doak 179 yards on offense. You take that 86-yard play away, Chucky Doak is held to 93 yards on offense. So they hold them to under 100 yards without that play, and very reminiscent to the Jellicoe North Green game, as we mentioned. You said that football is a game of runs, unlike basketball, where it could be a run of 3 or 4 offensive possessions. You have 2 back-to-back plays that changes the whole entire game.
Yep.
Same with Jellicoe North Green, same with this game. And sometimes those one plays matter more than anything. And that's exactly what happened here. Chucky Doak on the winning side of things, 7-0 over Pigeon Forge. Next week, they travel to Cott County, non-conference game against a big opponent. Looking forward to that one a lot to see how they can stack up against Cott County. Failed to mention North Green's opponent also. They've got a long road trip. They go to Williamsburg, Kentucky for an out-of-state 1A matchup.
Is that Pine Springs?
Is that what?
Pine Springs?
No idea.
I believe it's Pine Springs is the team they're playing, yeah. It's a pretty good haul.
Pine Springs, is that the name of the team?
I believe so. I believe it's the name of the school, yeah.
All right.
Pine something. It's not Twin Springs.
No, Twin Springs is
Virginia.
Yeah.
A lot of springs up that way.
There is a lot of springs.
Yeah.
Hot Springs, North Carolina also.
All around us.
All around. I think that's it on this part, though. Chucky Doak, 7-0 win over Pigeon Forge. They travel to Cott County this week. North Green, 20-14 win over Hancock County. They travel up to Kentucky. Both teams picking up their first region wins of the season. We've got 2 more teams left. We've got the Buffaloes and we've got the Green Devils after the break, so we'll jump into that in just a second after these messages.
Remember those days when life was simpler and every corner held a treasure just waiting to be discovered? Pettit's Market was a place where memories were made and where stories were woven. Here you'll find more than just goods. You'll find a piece of the past wrapped in the embrace of today. Pettit's Market is where neighbors become friends, friends become family, and good food and love holds everything together. So step inside, make memories, eat good, and leave happy. Pettit's Market, the little store with a big welcome.
Welcome back to Grassroots Media, and welcome back to this morning's edition of the Pizza Inn Saturday Morning Kickoff Show, live here from Pizza Inn in Greeneville. We've covered South Green, Chucky Doak, and North Green on the latter two parts of this video, so if you missed that, go check them out. We've got West Green and Greeneville left. Let's go ahead and start with Greeneville, just to get that out of the way. Because what a wild ride it's been, not only for Greeneville, but throughout all of East Tennessee. But I think
Greeneville's gotten the worst.
I think Greeneville has had the worst, because the two nights that it has to have had lightning in the area was when they played Dobbins-Bennett and Alcoa.
Yeah.
Maybe their two toughest opponents of the season, or maybe not if they're two toughest.
Their two biggest marquee.
Their two biggest marquee games that probably draw the largest crowd, that probably draws the largest attention outside of the Elizabethton game later in the year.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we don't see the ending of either game. And unfortunately, both games were tied.
And neither one of them count.
Exactly. None of the stats count. Nothing. It's just like a glorified scrimmage.
And of course, you get here tonight or last night, beautiful night for football around East Tennessee, and they're not playing because Morristown West and Daniel Boone, which Daniel Boone was Elizabethton's opponent supposed to be for Friday night, and Morristown West obviously was supposed to be Greeneville's opponent last night, and because they played their game on Thursday night, that game couldn't be played. You can't play them back-to-back days. So we moved that game to Tuesday. So I'm sure that Greeneville football players, coaches, and fans, they're probably just happy that the game's going to get played.
Yes. And it's a weird week for them again, because you have two games in 1 week where you get a long break to prepare for Morristown West, and then you get a short 2-day break to prepare for your conference game. I'm sure that's weird to prepare for, because I don't know how many days that would be in between. Let's see, Thursday to Tuesday. What is that, 12 days between Alcoa and Mo West?
Something like that.
And then you go 2 from Mo West to Volunteer. So I'm sure that's odd for them that they get to prepare that whole time for Morristown West and only 2 for Volunteer. It might be one of those things where they kind of split practice and prepare for both teams, but that can become confusing at times too. I don't know. All I know, Coach Eddie Spradlin does a great job out there with his coaching staff. I'm sure they're going to be prepared going into both games this week.
Yeah, and that's, it's not a conference game anymore. It used to be. It's not a conference game anymore. But that Morristown West and Greeneville rivalry is a little bit like the Tennessee-Florida rivalry for all you Vol fans. It's one of those almost forgotten rivalries. If you ask Joe Case, because, Joe Case actually coached at Greeneville and he coached at Morristown West. But if you ask Coach Case...
Did he go to high school at West?
No, he went to Jefferson County, but he was the defensive coordinator at Morristown West. And that was back whenever Morristown West was like state champion contender. And they were playing Greeneville at a high level. And those games were always really big. In fact, in that day and time, the Greeneville-Morristown West rivalry was as big, if not bigger, than the Greeneville-Elizabethton rivalry. Greeneville had a lot of really good rivalries back then, but that Greeneville-Morristown West rivalry for years, through the 90s and 80s, 90s, early 2000s, huge rivalry.
This would be a great time to have Mark on the show, too. Because Mark understands that rivalry a little bit.
Mark being a Morristown guy.
Exactly. Did he go to East or West?
He went to East, I believe.
Did he go to East? But he understands the rivalry with West and Greeneville just as much, because he's on the other side of the spectrum. We live in Greenville. We understand that part of the rivalry. He was from Morristown, so that would have been perfect to have him on there this week. Mark, hope you're having a fun time being the voice of whatever it is, though, up there. He can't be with us this week.
Hey, Pee Wee football, baby.
Hey, Pee Wee football is always fun to watch.
I'm sure.
It's enjoyable to wake up on Saturday morning and go watch that stuff.
It might be midget football. I think his grandson may have, I don't know. He may
Even
be,
better.
Yeah, so.
Better athletics.
But, yeah, so, that's going to be a fun game Tuesday night because, again, it is a big rivalry. You've got two communities that since the 80s have really grown and exploded with population and also just with industry and things. There's not only that's the good thing about a rivalry. Like Tennessee, Florida, Tennessee, Alabama, a lot of these college rivalries, you've got fan bases that have rivalries because of the game and stuff. But when you get to high school, when you talk about high school rivalries, when you think West Green, South Green that's coming up this week, it's not just the West Green Buffaloes and the South Green Rebels. It's the communities that have these rivalries. Growing up in the west end of Greene County, it was always like you just don't like people south side of the river. Like you don't have to know them, you don't like them. That's just kind of the community rivalry that was when you come to high school. And it's the same thing with Greenville, Morristown. There are a lot of people from Greenville that just do not like Morristown. I mean, I know people in both Morristown and Greenville that if they
scoff at the name Greenville.
Well, there are people in Morristown that if they get told they have to go to Greenville for something, they'll go the opposite direction. They'll go to Knoxville. They'll drive around Greenville just to be able to go to wherever they need to go. It's the same thing with Greenville. It's a big rivalry, and that's what I love about high school rivalries is because it's such a sociological unique factor because it's not just team versus team rivalry. It's community versus community. So, and Tuesday night, nobody's going to be playing. You don't have Monday night football. You don't have any other high school game, obviously. You don't have any college games going on. It's going to be the only football game being played anywhere that you can find in East Tennessee for sure. And it's a rivalry game. So I expect to have a large crowd at Burley Stadium. I know it's a school night. I know it's a work night. Still going to be a pretty large contingent there for that game. And that should be a good game. And it's one that Greenville feels like they've got to win.
Trivia. When is the last time Greenville High School has played on a Tuesday night? This will blow your mind.
I'm going to say October 14th of 1932.
That is actually very close to the answer. 1931.
1931. I figured it had to be
2 years. You know the team they played? Malsheim High School.
Malsheim High School. The Fighting Germans. Malsheim High School, man. That's a long time ago.
That's a very long time ago. It's like I joked with Eddie when he told me, I don't know if there's anybody alive that is still alive that watched that game.
Well, probably not.
Probably not. That's
because
how long it's been.
If you were a little older than just being born,
then you'd have to be almost.
You'd be over 100.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a pretty big stat there. I did not know that was the case. I think it's interesting also that the opponent was Malsheim High School because that's been such a long time ago too. Interesting.
3 games in Greenville High School history. I might have these years wrong, but I want to say 1923, 1925, 1931 are the 3 times they've played on a Tuesday night. And I think one of those was actually Tusculum. So a lot of things have changed. It's been 100 years since the first time they've played a game on a Tuesday night. And here we are 92 years since the last time they played on the Tuesday night.
Also an interesting stat with Greenville football. I believe that Greenville football actually beat the East Tennessee State University freshman team back in like the 40s or something on a Saturday. It was Drew Hall had given me that stat one time. He was looking up different notes and stuff, and he had found that stat. It's really interesting, but it's what I think is most interesting. I've asked several people that have covered sports, especially here in Greene County and East Tennessee for a long time. Have you ever seen anything like this where a team had to have one game ruled as a no contest, let alone 2, and there was a potential for a third?
Mm-hmm. Maybe COVID, but COVID was something different.
Well, COVID wasn't a no contest.
Yes,
it was
and
like
COVID was, kind of out of your hands in a sense, because if teams going through sickness, you might not be able to make that game up. But
Right.
with the weather and everything, that's a whole different animal. And I don't know if we might ever witness anything like this again, where you have such bad weather that you have the craziness that you have in 2023 so far.
Yeah. It is wild. And if you're Greeneville, then hey, you got a little bit of extra time to prepare for Morristown West. Morristown West had to play Thursday against Daniel Boone, so they've got, I'm sure they're probably practicing today.
Probably right. They practice today or Sunday, maybe both.
Could be. So.
And you look at how weird it is for some of these teams. Chucky Doak has played on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. North Green has played on Thursday, Friday, Monday. I want to think they played on a Thursday. They might have just played Friday, Monday, but still, that's wild that you play varsity games on Monday.
Yeah.
And then Greeneville will have played on Thursday, Friday, Tuesday.
No rhyme or reason.
And then, of course, you have some like West Green. They've played Thursday, Friday, but you usually get one of those Thursday games a year.
Yeah.
I know Chucky Doak's going to have two. They've got Gatlinburg, Pittman later on in the year, but wild year so far it's been. We had good weather last night. Let's hope it continues.
Man, it was beautiful last night.
It's starting to feel like football weather a little bit, too.
It is. I like that.
We actually, it was a little colder. I'm sure it was at the base of the mountain, too.
So, camera guy Kirk Denham, he came up there last night, and he was like, man, it's really hot up here. And I said, yeah, well, you will not be saying that here in about an hour. When that sun goes down, the wind starts blowing a little bit, it'll cut through to your bones here. And It did. It certainly did.
It was a little cold last night, and I got to admit, halftime, one of the reasons I was a little aggravated was not only homecoming taking so long, but the fact that the sun had dropped. The temperature was dropping, and you were standing still the whole time. So
I'm sure when it gets chilly, your brittle bones know it.
Yes.
But speaking about...
The dew was forming on the field, too, and feet were getting wet. And I was just
speaking about, like, mountain environments, football... West Green, Unicoi County last night. Unicoi County jumped out to Mark called it a hot start. I would say that's probably accurate.
14-0 within the first minute. They scored, I can't remember how long into the game, and then first play from scrimmage, West Green turns the ball over, then Unicoi County takes advantage, takes it right into the end zone. So 14-0 within the first minute, that's hard to come back from.
Yeah.
They didn't end up coming back from it. 42-8 was the final. Unicoi County takes the win. Good news for West Green, even though it is a loss, it's not a conference game anymore.
It's not.
It's no longer a Region 1 3A opponent. West Green has dropped down into Region 1 2A now. It is a region opponent for Chucky Doak, though. They'll face off with Unicoi County later in the year. Good news for Chucky Doak, they've got to come down to Lower Afton this year. But with West Green, it's not a regional game. It doesn't matter as much as it used to anymore. But there's some of those things that you need to learn from that game, I guess, moving forward, too. Because 42-8, there's probably not a lot of bright things that you could talk about from that game. I guess the one good thing that Coach Monroe mentioned is they did run the ball well in the second half. Ian Kiefer had 13 carries for 103 yards, added a 6-yard rushing touchdown also. He added their only score on the board. Maddox Garber had the 2-point conversion. And that's one thing we can go into and talk about is Ian Kiefer and how well he can develop over the years and be a feature back for West Green. You've seen him really have a good start to the year also. And with Wyatt Moody being a senior now, I believe, I think you're going to start to see his carries kind of raise a little bit going into next year too.
I like watching him run the ball. He runs the ball. He actually he reminds me a lot of Coach Adrian Saltzman. Whenever Coach Adrian was a Buffalo there in Malsheim, he ran the ball pretty similarly. He kind of tall, stood up, really moved his hips really well, and just he didn't try to maneuver you. He just tried to run over you, and that's a lot of what Ian Kiefer reminds me of is just the way he runs the football. It is exciting to see, but I'm telling you, I know it's not a regional game anymore, but to make that trip to Unicoi County and get beat 42-8, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't make that trip back feel good. You lose last week to Eagleton Academy, which is a region game, and then you watch Eagleton go to Happy Valley last night and get beat. And Happy Valley put up 30-plus points on them. You have to win. You have to win those region games. And for West Green, I don't know. Maybe the rivalry game's coming at the right time. Maybe
that's one thing I wanted to mention is you got to be locked in going into next week. You've got South Green. It's their biggest game of the year. That's the game that I think everybody in that school always circles on their calendar, the Milk Can game. And it means a lot more this year.
A lot more.
With it being a regional game, South Green is 1-0 so far. West Green is 0-1. I don't think people really understand unless you've had that situation where if you win that one rivalry game, how much it can catapult your season.
I'm going to say it, and I may be completely wrong, and I may say this, and after it's out there, South Green may never win another game this year. I don't know. But I've watched them play 2 weeks in a row now. We'll watch them play next week as well for the third week in a row. In 2A football, now obviously, Hampton scored almost 70 points last night against Cumberland Gap. Great on them. But South Green also could have probably hung that much on them if they wanted to as well.
Polarizing difference from that game, how many did they allow?
0.
How many did Hampton allow?
I don't know.
28.
So I don't know how good Hampton actually is. I know that that's normally a pretty tight game. If you're West Green, in my opinion, you are hosting the number one team in 2A this week. I think South Green has a legitimate shot at making a run to the state championship game this year. They're that good.
I've had thoughts like that.
I
checked the polls this week. I think they're criminally underrated. I think South Green should easily be top 10. I don't know how you're not top 10 after beating Crockett, blanking Cumberland Gap, blanking Union County, which that didn't matter in the previous polls, but beating Chunky Doak how they did last week. That they are one of the top teams in 2A. I don't want to be incorrect and say number one, but they have that feel to them where I think they are one of the top teams within 2A. I think they have a legitimate shot at beating Hampton and winning that 2A conference this year. And I like their chances come playoff time too. But looking ahead to this week is one of those weeks that both teams have to lock in for. It could be a game where whoever wins, it catapults their season for the good. West Green could pull another upset at home, and that changes their season around. South Green could win this game, take the Milk Can back, essentially become county champions, which I don't know is a thing anymore, but defeating Chunky Doak and West Green, they would have that 2-0 record in the county, and then having a 2-0 record in conference play, they're sitting pretty.
Well, for West Green, if you're West Green right now, you look at this game on Friday night, like you said, big rivalry. It means more this year because if you win that game, you're 1-1 in the region.
Mm-hmm.
You're 1-1 in conference play, region play, however you want to say it. I'm used to saying conference.
I am too.
So you're 1-1 in conference play. You've got games against Hampton. You've got games against Happy Valley coming up. You have winnable games coming up. You get the win over the number one team in the conference right now in South Green and go to 1-1 and put yourself in a pretty good position to, possibly go out and win one or two more games, and now you've secured yourself in a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
You go out and lose this game Friday night, and you drop to 0-2 in the conference and 2-4 on the season. You set yourself up to really have a heart-to-heart with the team, sit down if you're Coach Monroe and company over there on Big Ridge, and be like, boys, we've got to stop the bleeding. We have to. We have to cut our losses. We have to move forward. And you don't want to have that conversation.
No,
but
never do.
But it's one of those things that game, because it's a rivalry game, if you're West Green, you want to go over and compete. You obviously want to win the game. You're not ever going to play in a game where you plan on losing. You play to win the game. But you want to compete, and you want to compete for 4 quarters, and you want to make South Green earn it. You do not want to go into that game and just get blown out like you did against Chuggy Doak. You don't want that to happen, because if that happens, it's a long last 4 games of the season for you. And your road to the playoffs begins to dwindle. So it's a really pivotal week for Coach Monroe and the West Green Buffaloes this week. It's also a pivotal week for South Green, because South Green can continue in their winning ways. if they pick up the win over West Green, I'm telling you, I said it. I'm going to continue to say it until I believe otherwise. Now, obviously, I've not seen a lot of the other 1A teams. I think about, is it McMinn County? Who is the team that normally, that South Green normally plays?
Megs is the team that they used to. They have moved up to 3A
Okay.
now.
So,
York Institute was the one that Coach Jones mentioned earlier that knocked them out last year. That has been one of the top teams.
So you've got teams like York, Oneida, teams like that. I think right now the way South Green is playing, if they continue to play the way that they're playing, they have a state championship caliber team. If you're West Green, you look at that and say, look, this team could be a state championship team. They're coming to our place. This is the biggest rivalry in Greene County, the oldest rivalry in Greene County. It's our biggest rivalry. They're in our conference. This is a big opportunity for us. And for South Green, it's a big opportunity because you keep winning and let everything else take care of itself. But, it's going to be an exciting game next week. I hope so. I hope it's going to be an exciting game. I think it has the potential to be an exciting game. It always is. Doesn't really matter, at least
record-wise.
Yeah, for the last 10, 15 years, it's always been a relatively exciting game. And there have been years where West Green was kind of in the same position that South Green's in. Really, really good, lots of talent, winning all over the place, beating teams above them in classification. So, interesting game, a lot on the line for both teams, but I think West Green, it is a must-win type of game.
Yep, I think they're the must-win situation this week as North Green was this past week. We could sit here and talk an hour and do a whole entire show on South Green and West Green. I think you could make a whole 3-hour documentary on that rivalry. But I think we have to put the cap on this episode. Good news is that is our game of the week this week.
It is?
South Green and West Green. So you will be up there on Big Ridge next week streaming that game live here on the Grassroots Media YouTube channel. It'll be South Green's, third straight game of the week?
Yes.
And I think it'll be West Green's third game of the week this year.
Yep.
The 3 county games that they've played so far this year, they're 1-1 in county play. South Green 1-0. As we mentioned, it means a little bit more now. Not only is the milk can on the line, not only is bragging rights on the line, but now you have conference and playoff implications. West Green sitting at 0-1 after a loss to Eagleton. South Green at 1-0 after a win over Cumberland Gap. So it's a very important game. We'll go ahead and recap one time before we close it out. South Green 47-0 win over Union County. Travel to West Green. Chucky Doak 7-0 win over Pigeon Forge. Travel to Cott County. North Green 20-14 win over Hancock County. Travel to Williamsburg, Kentucky. West Green lost 42-8 over Unicoi County. Now they host South Green. And then Greeneville had that long layoff after a no contest with Alcoa. They have 2 games this week. They host Morristown West on Tuesday and then travel to Volunteer on Friday for a region game. That's it, though. Thank you to Coach Jones for joining us. Dalton, thank you for joining me also. I've been your host, Tyler. Thank you all for watching. Look forward to seeing you next Saturday here at Pizza Inn on the Pizza Inn Saturday morning